Hi, I'm Neil Christensen, author of Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. Welcome back to another sporadic edition of I'm Reading House of Leaves, so you don't have to. Today we're talking about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 clocks in at about 16 pages, and its primary focus is delving into the beginning of the actual real investigation of the mysterious hallways and other connected spaces. Since Karen has already told Will that she will leave him and take his children if he ever goes into those hallways again, he has to find another way to explore the spaces. So Will does what Will would do. He brings in a team of professional explorers. This team was located by Billy Reston. He's the academic from the university that's been helping Will all this time investigate the inside of the house. When Will tells Billy that he's been forbidden by Karen to go into the space, Billy reaches out to a man named Holloway Roberts. Holloway is a noted professional hunter and explorer. Apparently, his qualifications are impeccable for this, and Reston explains these qualifications in a segment that is known as the Reston interview. A footnote directs us to Exhibit 4, where it says we can read the entirety of the Reston interview. Alas, when we get there, we find that it is completely empty. There is a footnote from the editor that says that Holloway brings with him 2 employees, a man named Jed Leader and another named Kirby Waxhook. When they arrive, Will begins explaining what he already knows about the hallways. He even provides them with a hand-sketched map that he made after his last trip in that Karen doesn't know about. The team just thinks it's crazy and is actually laughing at him in his presence. It's mentioned that Holloway thinks Will has a screw loose. However, when Will finally unlocks the door, opens it up and shows them, everybody stops laughing. Internally, Will is really upset and even a little bit resentful that he has to bring in other people to explore his own home. So the team begins to explore slowly, always taking high-8 cameras with them to document everything that they see. Will provides the team with a reel of fishing line so they can unravel it as they move through the hallway, turn corners, and cross intersections so that they can find their way back. Will instructs them at no point should they ever let go of the fishing line, and also mentions that the reel has about 2 miles of line on it. In exploration number 1, the team enters the hallway and is gone for about an hour. When the team gets back and they review the footage, they find that, just like Will, they found many hallways, many doorways, and even the large archway that moves into the gigantic room that seemed to have no walls or ceiling. Except this team has much better equipment, including stronger flashlights and measuring gear. They are able to determine that the room does have a ceiling. It's just that the ceiling is over 200 feet high. Additionally, they do find the edge of the room, only the edge just reveals a larger archway into yet a larger room. This space also contains an enormous spiral staircase that juts down into the ground and seems to have no end. The team only stops exploring when they run out of fishing line. At this point, I'll remind you that the reel had 2 miles of fishing line on it. The other reason that they decide to go back is that they start to hear a growling noise, like a voice off in the distance. So, for exploration number 2, the team takes 4 of those reels of fishing line. They also take neon markers to mark the walls and containers to take samples of the walls and floor. Exploration number 2 takes 8 hours to complete. They've assigned a name to the large open space. They're calling it the Great Hall. They also took flares with them, and when they reached the giant staircase, they lit the flares and threw them down. They said they watched the flares disappear into the darkness, but never heard them hit the bottom. It's eating Will up inside that other people are having this experience, this excitement inside his own home, and he is not able to participate. His brother Tom tries to convince Karen to let him go, and Karen says he can. He's always free to go. It's just that if he does, she does too. Exploration number 3 lasts 20 hours. And the majority of this is because the team decides to start moving down the stairway and exploring that. They walk down the stairway for 7 hours without ever reaching the bottom. As they're descending the staircase, the diameter of the spiral keeps increasing and increasing. At the surface level, the staircase was 200 feet in diameter. And as they descend, it just gets wider and wider and wider. By the time they give up, the staircase seems to be at least 500 feet wide. It takes the team 11 hours just to walk back up the staircase and get out of the hallway. At this point, we have another interlude about Johnny and his deteriorating mental state. He goes about trying to alleviate his melancholy the same way he always does. He tries to sleep with women. He ends up hooking up with a German woman who he had met previously while doing the translation of Zampano's manuscript. They have sex in the front seat of her car, and that's when we find that she is as broken as him. She drops him off and starts crying before driving off, leaving him alone. Next, we visit with Karen and her attempts to try to make the house a little more livable through the fine art of feng shui. She's trying to arrange the furniture to consolidate the energy, but she's finding it to be unsuccessful. It's not giving her what she's looking for. So she consults experts on the subject, and they tell her that it's important to be precise and that she should use a compass to align the furniture perfectly within the house. Of course, it's no surprise to learn that compasses do not work inside the house. Then we have another offshoot where Johnny starts talking a little bit more about his childhood. He talks about his father's death and his time in the foster care system. He talks about how he started to get into fights, and then he'd get into more fights and more fights. And this caused him to start pushing down his emotions and making him cold inside. First, he started fighting back, and then he started looking for opportunities to fight back. In 1 week in particular, he got into over 10 fights, the last of which ended with him breaking the other boy's jaw. This had the dual effect of getting him expelled from the school and also beaten within an inch of his life by his foster father. At the end of the chapter, the team starts preparing for what is now the infamous Exploration Number 4. Exploration Number 4's mission is to reach the bottom of the Great Staircase. They expect this to take between 4 and 5 days. Even this team of professional explorers is expressing some trepidation about this mission. So much so, in fact, that Holloway has decided that he is going to take his rifle with him. Before the team leaves for Exploration Number 4, everybody involved has one final night together. This is when we see some footage from one of the motion-activated cameras of Karen in the kitchen alone with Wax. There's a copy of Will's map lying on the counter. Wax says no, it wasn't him. He didn't know who drew it, but he thought it was Will. And then a moment later, Wax leans in and kisses Karen on the mouth. He withdraws, and they look at each other, and then a moment later, he leans in and kisses her again. And this time, she kisses him back. Slowly, it becomes a very deeply passionate kiss. Then just as suddenly, she pushes him away and walks out of the kitchen. The chapter ends with the observation that since Will Navidson is the one that put the entire documentary together, clearly he saw that footage. He saw the kiss. But by that time, Karen and everybody else were gone, and nothing mattered anymore. Chapter 7 was very entertaining. It kept things moving, it kept things interesting, it gave us new insights on the absolute vastness of these mysterious spaces inside Will's house. I mean, if we think about the fact that there's a space in his living room that has a ceiling that is 200 feet high, I mean, you step outside the house, look at the house, it's not, I mean, that is some wacky wacky stuff, and it is very unsettling. It also gives us some foreshadowing, if not just a direct statement about the future of Will and Karen, as well as some insight into how Karen is feeling in this moment herself. It wasn't a particularly long chapter, but it kept moving, and it was interesting and engaging. All of the analysis of House of Leaves that I've read up until this point tells me that the book really starts moving in chapter 10. But for us, next up is chapter 8. So if you're liking this, if you're finding this helpful, then go ahead and give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell people about it, and let them know, hey, this book is daunting, but that's okay because I'm reading House of Leaves, so you don't have to.